All right, happy Friday, y'all. Thanks for coming to Writing Desk. I'm Jamie, and I am here with the fabulous Teddey Hicks, author of the book My Life Gets Better Every Day. It's a great book, it's a lot of fun. And she's going to talk to us a little bit this week about affirmations, writing, publishing, all the cool stuff. And yeah, so we come here at the writing desk every week on Friday to talk about writing and memoir and mindset and healing and publishing and all the great things. And so yeah, I'm very excited to introduce Teddey. So Teddey is a certified intuitive eating counselor. She's a real estate agent, writer, of course, mother, wife, and dog lover who lives in Maryland. And she's going to talk to us about our book today. So, welcome. Thank you so much, Teddy, for joining us today.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited.
Awesome. Well, so let's get started. Let's talk a little bit. So, how long have you been writing? Have you always been a writer? Have you always wanted to write a book, or what brought about your affirmation book?
Um, I think I kind of always have been a writer, like in a very informal way. Actually, the first time that I started to kind of identify myself that way was in high school, and a teacher approached me and said, like, you have a gift for writing, and like it just felt so normal to me that I didn't even realize that was like a thing, like that it was not that easy for everybody. So I've written my whole life just kind of casually, even if it's just like journal entries every day or just anything to like keep that kind of skill flowing. But I started to write more seriously when I started my coaching business, and that was probably back in like 2015, I think. I started to write blog posts, and that was like a very good format for me because the thought of sitting down and writing like a whole story from beginning to end and like all of the things in between was very overwhelming to me. But
Mhm.
the thought of writing like just a little bit about one subject was that really like I connected with that. So I used to write like a blog post every day, and I got really into it. You should see my Google Drive is like filled with 10,000 blog posts that I've written. Um, so do you want to hear the whole story of how the book came about now? You want to get into that now?
I'd love to. Yeah, definitely talk to us
Okay.
about it.
So when I was doing my coaching business, I think, everybody who starts that kind of business, I think you probably agree, kind of hit a wall, where you think, okay, I have this skill and I have this motivation and I'm going to do this thing. And then you're like, okay, how do I get money? Like, how do I get clients? It just all feels very hard. So I set a very clear intention for myself to like really listen to my like intuitive nudges, just like universe, point me in the right direction. What am I supposed to be doing? Because I felt like Sisyphus, pushing the boulder up the hill, and I wasn't making any progress. And I just one day I had this very clear kind of thought that I just needed to write an affirmation and send it to my mailing list every day. And of course, I had this whole narrative in my head about how I wasn't going to make any money from that, and that was, blah blah blah. But I had committed to kind of just following this path of my gut, what my gut was telling me to do. And so I started every morning just sitting down and writing an affirmation and sending it to my mailing list. And I had gotten I'm in recovery from like several eating disorders. That's kind of what led me to my coaching business. And along that path, I really got inspired by the idea of like reprogramming these old ideas that we have, like one of mine, of course, was like, my body's not okay. And so the more I read and the more I like listened to podcasts and did all of the things, I was like, you know what, this really works. Like the messages that you hear consistently every single day become your belief system, and you do have the power to change that. So these affirmations just felt like a way that I could kind of dig into that for myself and also share it with my audience. And so I did that for several years, every morning, affirmation to my mailing list, and along the way I was keeping them in a Google document, just like a running list of them. And then again I had this intuitive nudge several years later to publish them into a book. And that just felt for when actually I remember the very moment that occurred to me. I was sitting on my sofa and I had just gotten off the phone with my sister, and all of a sudden I just was hit with this huge thing. Like, you have to publish a book of these affirmations. Like, and it's going to be one for every day of the year. And I started crying because it just felt like such an aligned, important connection for me to make. And so I did. I just did it. And that's how the book came about. And I really felt the whole way along the process of publishing it and writing it and everything felt very inspiring and very aligned with what I wanted to do. So that's where we are.
Wow, that is quite a story and required so much trust for you to just like, I mean, I feel like I have just pulling me in 10 billion different directions, and you were
Yeah.
able to identify that and follow it through as this is the one thing I have to do.
Yeah.
How did you differentiate, if you don't mind my asking?
I think I got really clear that at every point along the way of trying to build my business and, figure out what I was going to do with my life, every time I got disconnected from love and more focused on like ego and financial gain, things fell apart. Things felt very hard. And so every time I was able to turn around and come back to just focused on sharing something that I thought people wanted to hear, sharing what was coming out of my heart, that was when things just felt like they were really flowing easily for me, and it felt fun and good. So I don't know at any point my brain was really involved in the thought process, because I really had to let go a lot of like all of the thoughts of like what I'm supposed to be doing and how this is supposed to look, and just come back to this place of being like, just go down this path that feels good right now.
That is beautiful. So it truly is a heart-led, soul-led book,
Yeah.
um, start to finish. And so did you already have a collection of 365 affirmations to put into the book before you even thought about publishing, or did you have to add and all of that?
I had thousands actually. So because I had been doing the ones to my mailing list for a lot longer than a year.
Oh wow.
So yeah, actually a lot of the work of publishing this book in particular which is having to like slog through like all of these and just pick out my favorites, and it was actually fun, but also like a lot of work. I literally just copied and pasted into a new document the ones that I felt were, most powerful or resonated the most with me, and then edited it, and none of it took a very long time, but it was I felt pulled through the process. I don't know how a better way to say it. It just felt like something that I needed to do at that time in my life. And I set a deadline for myself to have it done by December so that it could be like something people could use starting, January 1st of the new year. So, it really just all was like it fell into place. I didn't have a plan. I don't have like a, I didn't think through what it was going to look like. It just like it all unfolded the way it was supposed to.
That is amazing. I love that. And it just goes to show like how needed that book was, that universe came in and just like, okay, do this, do that, do that.
Yeah.
I
That
think
it's funny. That's something that comes up for me a lot, is like, even if I don't think it's that great, like when I was writing these affirmations to my mailing list every day. So there would be days, of course, that I was like, oh, this one sucks, like, but it's all I got, and I would just send it out. And without fail, on those days, I always got responses from people that were like, whoa, this hit home today. This is really what I needed to hear. So I learned, like, along that process, I just learned to trust that whatever was coming out of me that day, even if it wasn't for me, it was for somebody, and it's liberating to just kind of release your, perfectionism and needing to everything to feel perfect for yourself, and just know that like whatever you're putting out into the world is for somebody, and will be received by somebody. So
that is such gold right there. Because so often we are held back with that imposter syndrome and
mhm,
second guessing our words. And sometimes we easily forget this isn't about what I think is good, what I think is right. I just got to let it be because there's somebody out there that needs these words, and that's why I'm writing them in this
uh-huh.
way. That's powerful.
Yeah, it was a very just like a spiritual process. It really felt like I was connected with something bigger than myself. And it was also that's a relief, to think that you don't have to do it all. I mean, I'm not sure what the vibe is of your group, like if this is going to resonate, but
Open
you
to
know,
everything.
Yeah. You don't have to be like the expert on everything. You can let it just be what it is. Like when you make art, you don't have to think, oh, this needs to be a like a Van Gogh and hang in a museum. You're like, this is just a creative process for me. And whatever comes out of this is meaningful, even if it doesn't like make me $1 million or make me famous or, whatever.
Yeah, I think that release of letting go of the monetary expectations or
Hmm.
hopes, is a huge part of it too, is being led by the message and the reason why you want to write that book. Um, yeah, yeah. What did you find for you? Was there a hard part about it? Other than obviously choosing from thousands of great, affirmations, what was the hardest part for you?
Honestly, the hardest part was that point after it was published. I was holding it in my hand and I had to face that thing. Like, I don't have a coach. I didn't have like somebody, like a publicist or anybody helping me. This was all literally just me. And I had to take this thing that I had created and like this, I had poured my heart into this and then go, hey guys, like look at my insides. You know what I mean? And I'm sure a lot of your group will resonate with that too, because I think you guys are working on memoirs a lot, right? Like that's very personal stuff.
Yeah.
So the hardest part for me was just expose. It felt like you're like ripping yourself open and going like, look at me. And like, do you think I'm okay? Like, do you like what I've done? It was very hard. Those first couple of Facebook posts, I mean, and I didn't do a lot. It was like a couple of Facebook posts and Instagram posts, but it just felt like really, really vulnerable. And I got nothing but positive feedback. It wasn't like I was facing difficult criticism or anything like that, but it was just so hard to be that open.
Yeah. And I'm rereading another book by Brene Brown right now. It's in that vulnerability and it's just,
Yeah,
yeah, it's like walking through the street naked. Look at me, right?
100%.
It's your heart and soul just completely exposed, no matter what you're writing, because art is so much of who you are.
Exactly.
So how did you separate yourself from that and kind of move past that vulnerability or embrace the vulnerability if that was the case?
Yeah, I think it was more like embracing the vulnerability and just knowing that I had to constantly remind myself of how I got here, right? Like it wasn't a plan. I wasn't like, this is going to make me lots of money and this is going to be really popular and people are going to love this. It was like this came out of my soul and I needed to share it. And I always had to come back to that place, the truth that I knew that it will get to the people who need it and want it and like it, and everybody else will just ignore it. And I just reminded myself of that. I affirmed that to myself every day. I reminded myself I really connected with that idea. And that's exactly what happened. I've been really surprised at if I sat down and thought, okay, these 20 people in my life are really going to love this book and they're really going to connect with it. And whatever, that did happen. But I was shocked at this, just all of these people on the periphery of my, sphere of influence, like people that I barely even know or that I just had no idea would even get this at all, have really just kind of come in and been like my biggest fans and my biggest cheerleaders and really like have been transformed by the messages in the book, which is like amazing. It never fails to amaze me that you're connecting with people that you just never would have expected. You know, yeah,
Oh, that is so amazing. And I think what we're all hoping for as we write books is that connection to somebody
mhm.
else's heart and
Yeah,
to read that. And I love your last couple of posts. You said that best feeling in the world, your daughter, you walk into your daughter's room and your book is sitting there with highlighter and sticky notes, and then your other daughter, she's in college, right?
yeah, they're both in college. Yeah,
Yeah, and she's like, send me 6 copies so we can all do it as like a little book club in their college dorm. Is that how it
yeah,
worked, or?
yeah, yeah. Yeah. I mean, that is really special too, because my girls, I mean, they're great and we have a great relationship, but they're not necessarily like on the same wavelength with me about, affirmations or like spirituality.
They're
They're
young.
very much their own people, and that's fine. They're 20 and 21. So they're just kind of getting into adulthood and figuring their stuff out. And so to see them connect with this, I mean, at first I think it was just to support me, obviously, but then also like really get into it and like start to hear the messages and that age group too is not necessarily like you would think that they would be like that spiritual or, into this stuff, but all of their friends have really embraced it. And that's been super gratifying for me, just to see how it can resonate with different kinds of people.
Oh, that's amazing. Yeah, we always talk about in developing writing to have, that target audience, that niche.
Mhm.
But you are also amazed at that fringe audience that comes in that you didn't expect, you didn't necessarily write for, but they embraced it too, and it was
Yeah.
written for them too, but you just never expected it. That's what an amazing tribute to your book. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's really nice.
Yeah. Um, so when tell us a little bit more about affirmations and how they work. Why do you believe that they're so important? It's something I do a lot of work with too, and I know a lot of some people are like, eh. Talk to us a little bit about that, about why you chose that style of getting through.
I so I told you a little bit about how I kind of got into that idea of like reprogramming these unhelpful beliefs that you've gathered over the years. And I kind of had like a three-tier process for that. One was kind of like meditation and release, and affirmations, and then hypnosis, which is like one aspect of my coaching business is that I'm also a hypnosis practitioner. So I kind of like added that into the work that I was doing with my clients. And it's for me, it just really hits home to think that like you have like your subconscious mind has these beliefs, just messages you've heard over and over and again in your life, like there's never enough money is a big one for me, and my body is not okay. And you can identify those beliefs and go, okay, this is what has been the rudder of my ship so far, but now I'm deciding that I want to change those ideas and have a different belief system so that my ship can go in a different direction. And the more I worked with those ideas, I was like, it's easy. First of all, like all you have to do is literally tell yourself a new message over and over again until your brain goes, oh, okay, well, that'll be our new thing. Um, and it really works. It's like a passive way to change your life. You don't have to have a lot of energy around it. You don't have to get hyped every day. You don't have to like run around and do a bunch of stuff. You just have to like come back to yourself and remind yourself of what you want to be true for you. And it will become true if you repeat it to yourself enough. And so let me show you. This is my sister and I, every morning we write, um, like we've picked an affirmation and we write it 25 times and we send it to each other like a little picture every morning for accountability. But it works. It's like the first time you start doing it, your brain is throwing up all of this resistance. Like, this is not true. This could never be true for you. How is this possible? How are you going to do this? Like all this stuff. And you're like, all right, I hear all that and I'm just going to keep moving through it. And then like, on day 6 of doing this practice, all of a sudden it just doesn't seem that crazy anymore. And then on day 12, it's like, oh, I could do this. Like this is my new norm. This is the new thing that's going to be true for me. So I think affirmations are just really an easy and powerful way to start your day with that little message. Like, just instead of like doom scrolling on social media or like thinking about all the crap you have to get at the grocery store, like whatever else, just start your day with this little positive message that's going to send your brain in the right direction, and have a new belief system.
I love that. So you pick one phrase, one
Hmm.
like sentence, you write it 25 times
Hmm.
every day for how long?
Well, I mean, I don't know if there's a set answer for that. For me, it's like as long as it takes for that thing to not be a problem in my life anymore, as long as it takes for that to be new for me. I mean, there was times that my affirmation was something like, I'm perfectly comfortable in the body that I have right now, or like I can be healthy and happy in the body I have right now. Now, in present day, that seems ridiculous because it's so normal. You know what I mean? That's like so much who I am now. But 15 years ago, that was like a wild idea. Like, oh, I can stop dieting and I can be comfortable around food and I can accept myself in this body. Like crazy, crazy stuff. But now that's just like my life. So the affirmation should be positive and present tense. Those are really important. So not like I'm going to make this much money or I'm going to do X, Y, and Z, but like I am already this person. I'm all this thing is already happening for me, And so because then your brain looks for ways to make that true for you, you know?
I love that. And it's so
Yeah.
true because we do this automatically on the negative side. Like there's that mantra that we constantly, subconsciously, consciously, the uh, self-deprecating humor we use, we
Mhm.
do this and we create those mantras and our own negative affirmations so easily. And so that is your process of, as you said, reprogramming. I love that.
Yeah.
Really
It's
powerful.
And once you start doing it for yourself, you can really like you'll notice when you're in a conversation with somebody else and you're like, wow, look at hear the messages they're telling themselves 100 times a day. Like I have a person in my life who every time I talk to her, it's like, we can't afford this. We don't have enough money for that. And I happen to know that it's not actually true in reality. Like I know that they're fine financially, but it's just that's the story that she has. And she feels that way. You know what I mean? She feels deprived. She feels poor, and you can see that like she is literally rehearsing these negative affirmations every day, and so it would be so easy for her to be deliberate and mindful about flipping it to something positive and like not suffer like that, but we all do it.
Yeah, it's very very normal. It's just a thread of our society, and it's
Mhm.
neuroscience, that constant repetition and having to break through that rut. So that's just beautiful. And with your book, you give a new affirmation each day, and then you talk about it and kind of just give a nice little encouragement and push and explanation and advice to move people forward. Do you
Mhm.
have a favorite day from your
you
book?
know I did flip through and find one that really like I feel like is kind of universal and the kind of thing that I like to come back to all the time because I tend to catastrophize and like go off the rails on like negative thoughts about like the world and things I can't control. And so this one, like, actually it's funny because sometimes I'll just open the book and like let it fall where to whatever page, and this is the one that came up for me today. And I was like, oh yeah, I needed this reminder. I can make the best of anything. Can I read the whole thing?
Please, please.
Okay. Remember when you used to dance in the rain, jump in mud puddles, and make shadow animals with flashlights when the power went out? Okay, even if you were that kid sitting in the corner worrying, it's never too late to adopt that playful attitude in the face of adversity. No matter what's going on, you have permission to have a light heart and make the best of it. You can laugh at the circumstances, commiserate with people going through the same thing, and figure out how to have some fun. It's really about accepting what's happening and going with the flow, keeping as high a vibe as you can.
That's beautiful. I love that.
Yeah.
Can you say that one line again? The you have permission to what? You have permission to have a light heart, I think it was.
Oh, yes. Yep. A light heart.
Yeah. I
Yeah.
love that. I love that.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah.
So, okay, here's a question for me. So my problem with devotionals and daily kind of affirmations and books like that, when I miss a day, do we go back and read all the days in between that we missed? Like if we miss like 2 or 3 days and then we're like, oh wait, I really want to read that. Or do you just say, just let you fall in? Because I loved how you said how sometimes you just let the book fall and you let it open and that's
Yeah.
what you needed to hear that day. So
Yeah.
even though we feel like we have to do it every day, and if we miss a day, oh, now we got to catch up, and then it gets overwhelming. Is it okay for us to just take the day as it is?
Yeah. I think the most important thing is to really connect with how you feel, right? And if it feels good to go back and catch up and like read all the other ones, and like, yeah, that's the right thing. But if that feels overwhelming and stressful and you need to just like release that and pick up where you left off, then that's the right thing. Like I don't think there's a right answer necessarily, but the more you come back to that, like, how does my soul feel with this decision, and that of course applies to everything in your life. Like, what's the right thing right now? Nobody knows. Nobody has the right answer. How do you feel? What makes you feel the best? What feels like relief? What feels like flow? What feels like positive path forward? That's the right thing for you today.
I love that. I love that. I love that. Okay. Well, would it be okay if you talked a little bit about what it was like to publish for
Yeah,
you?
absolutely. um again, that was another area where I got really caught up in like this story about like what it's supposed to look like or what I'm supposed to be doing, or like I have to follow this traditional path of like writing the book, writing a book proposal, finding somebody who wants to represent me, getting a publisher to like it, like this whole thing. And that did not feel good to me. That was an area where it just like it made me feel extremely stuck and anxious and not happy. So I was like, the most important priority for me is just getting this into the world, just making like creating this thing. And I'm going to do it in the easiest way possible and the least expensive way possible because I didn't have a lot of money to do it. So I just completely did it all by myself. I found someone on Fiverr to format it in the correct way. Like, you can just find someone, Amazon, KDP, like format the book. And she did that and it was fine. And that was like, I think maybe like $75 literally.
Yeah.
And and then, you upload it yourself on the Amazon site and they send you a copy and you're like, yeah, it looks good. And then it's there, like it's just, for me, the whole thing was just like super easy. And I know there's a million different ways to do it. And there were a couple points along the way where I thought, boy, I wish I had someone like here telling me what I'm like, how, like what these technical things mean a little bit, but none of it was hard or, I just really wanted to keep it as easy and simple as possible. And that's what I did. So
I love that. Yeah, it's the way to go. Just keep going forward and make it easy and easeful, right?
yeah. And I'm at a point now with this that it can go anywhere. You know what I mean? This isn't like I never thought of that as like this is the end of this project and now I'm self-published and that's all I can do. I know at some point it might be bigger, it might get attention from somebody and turn into something else, but all of it's okay. I don't have like I didn't have any financial goals for it. I didn't think it should be a certain way. I mean, I don't even know how many copies it sold. Like I'm so disconnected from that aspect of it because I just like it just needs to be what it is.
So your goal was definitely more let me help people
Hmm.
versus I need to sell this many books or I need to make this amount of money. You were
Right.
definitely just focused on let me get this out of there and who needs to hear it is going to hear it and see it, right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah,
Yeah. Oh, that's beautiful. I love that release. And that's got to be freeing, I would think, to
it
just let
is.
go of that stress and anxiety and thought that a lot of writers get stuck into.
Yeah. I think, I mean, the process of writing those affirmations and putting this book together took place over a period in my life when I was really struggling with something in my personal life. And it was, I mean, like dark, dark times. And so it was kind of a salvation for me just to be able to get something completed, and like just make it happen. And I know that's not going to be everybody's journey, obviously. People are coming at these projects in many different ways, but for me that was just like that's what needed to happen and that's what happened, and I was able to like just let go of all the other nonsense around it and just like bring it into the world in a way that felt as simple and streamlined as I could. So
I love that.
yeah.
That's so great. It's so great.
Yeah.
Is there anything you would do differently about the process that you took in the journey? Are you happy with how everything just kind of fell into place? Not without effort or anything, but the way it
Yeah.
just unfolded as you talked about.
Well, I will say I think one of the most important things about getting these affirmations written and putting this book together was being consistent. Like there was a big part of it for me that even on the hardest days, it was like, all you have to do is sit down and write this affirmation, like that was just like, um, I had to come back to that like anchor point. And so the consistency was really important throughout the whole process. And I will say, after it being published and like having it on the market, so to speak, I am very inconsistent with publicizing it and like talking about it. And so I think if I could do anything differently, and of course I can still do this differently going forward, it would just be to have a little bit of a better system and a plan in place for how I was going to talk about the book, and um, just make it more of like a regular thing on social media. Because what happens now, and you've probably seen this if you're paying any attention at all, is that like I get an idea or I get inspired or I get positive feedback from someone and I'm like, ooh, and I post it and I say something about it, but then like 4 weeks will go by and I don't do anything. So I think carrying the consistency that it took me to get the book into print, through like the marketing and uh definitely would be an improvement.
I think that's the biggest thing. A lot of writers, we either kind of put our blinders on because a lot of writers do tend to be introverts as well too. Like me, where we're like social media, publishing,
Yeah.
marketing, publication,
Right.
promotion. That's the word I was looking for. Yeah, it's scary and it's a lot if you really want to get it out there and make waves. But yeah, sometimes it is what it is and we do what we can and it'll come.
Yeah. I have to like I always think of myself as like riding the wave, like right now I'm in a trough and that's I don't have the thing to get on there and say something positive, but that won't last. I'll be at the top of the wave in a little while and then I can do more. So I'm just, a lot of it has been about just like letting myself be where I am right now and not criticizing any aspect of like what's happening in my heart or in my life. I have a million things going on and everybody does. It's not going to look the same every day. I don't have 8 hours to sit down and like focus on this every day. So it is what it is right now. And that's fine.
So will there be books to follow, a second affirmation book or a guided journal or a memoir?
My therapist, it's so funny you say that. My therapist is obsessed with the idea of me writing a memoir just because of all the shit I've been through in the past like 7 years. And I like the idea. I want to do it. But right at this point, it feels like, again, it feels like one of those things that's impossible. But I know maybe next year it won't feel impossible. So I'm holding that, as an idea, but nothing's in the works right now. I did start another book of affirmations. I said, I was like, all right, you can keep doing this, And so I sat down and started writing an affirmation a day again, not sending it to anybody, just like having it. And I fell off with that too because it just didn't feel like the right next step, I guess. It just felt like I was kind of repeating something that felt very aligned and very inspiring before, but this time it was like, oh, you're just doing it to do it.
Until
So I don't know yeah, I don't know what it's gonna look like.
you're waiting for the soul call, right?
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Like we yeah, I mean, sometimes life is like really lifey and I can't, don't have the whatever it takes to do this creative work, but I know that won't always be true.
We met with life Jen Liddy, who's she was a life coach, now she's a content coach, and she always said that, right? Life gets lifey. You guys have heard me say it probably too. I love that
That's
you
why
just
I
said
said it. Jen and I have we talk every week, and she says that almost during every single one of our conversations. So it's true. I mean, it's a very good way to describe it. Life gets very lifey sometimes, and right now my life is very lifey. So
Yeah, that's one of my favorite Jenisms, and then the other one is dwell in possibility, because that was another one she always said to me, "Gotta dwell in possibility."
yeah, I mean, that's so what a way to like open your mind up and just like let it be free and discover. I mean, if you had said to me like, Teddy, what's the best way for you to like make money and connect with people? 10 years ago, this would not have been even like in the universe. You know what I mean? So it's just like you have to let yourself be creative and just like go with the flow and see where things are taking you and follow your heart. That was the biggest message for me all along this journey was just like listen to what feels right for me, and do that thing even if your brain is going that doesn't make any sense. Like it doesn't matter. Just go, do it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. I do want to circle back. I know we're running a little short on time, but I do want to circle back really quickly. You at the beginning you had talked about how you had this daily practice of writing the affirmations, writing journals. Do you still do that?
I have a daily practice. It's not about writing affirmations, but except
Just
for
writing
what
it.
I my sister, yeah. But um that is a very important part of my life and it always has been. And so I think that's a really good piece of advice for people who want to be more consistent with their work or like get a book together and publish something is just like have a non-negotiable daily routine, even if it's 15 minutes. It doesn't have to be like hours long or your whole day. But for me, I know exactly what my morning is going to look like every morning when I wake up. Like I have a very clear path for like literally probably the first 2 hours I'm awake. I get up very early and I have like these, I know I'm going to sit down at my computer. I'm going to do X, Y, and Z. I'm going to open my journal. I'm going to write these things, and so that happens every day, no matter what the heck else is going on in my life. And I don't, it doesn't, it's not hard. It doesn't feel like an effort anymore just because it's so much a part of my routine. So yeah, that, I mean, I think that's the best thing would be to just carve out a part of your day where you do this no matter what. And even if it's terrible, writing is like, I'm sure like you talk about this, but like you sit down and you think you have to like create like this masterpiece and every word that comes out of your mouth has to be like soulful and poetic. And it's just not like that. Sometimes you sit down and you write a bunch of bullshit and then you have to go back and be like, oh, well, that was terrible, but at least I did it. At least I showed up for myself today. At least I got that pen in my hand or I sat down at my keyboard and I let something come out of me, even if it wasn't my best work, and that's okay. Like it doesn't have to be great.
Yep. First rule is you have to write the first draft. You can't edit an empty page, right?
Right.
The first
100%.
draft is supposed to suck, and it's good. It's exciting. Yes, for sucking.
Yeah. I also want to say too, this keeps popping up in my brain. So I want to somebody needs to hear it. I know that. Um, I read a book by Roxane Gay like years ago, and I don't even remember what book it was, but it was memoirish. It was like something she wrote about her life. And it was not like a linear format. I don't know if you've read this book or if you know what I'm talking about, but it was like each chapter was like its own world, and the next chapter would be about something completely different or a completely different stage of her life or like something. And reading that book blew my mind because I thought this is so liberating. She just was like literally letting whatever needed to come out. And she didn't, it really just like relieved me of that pressure to think that a memoir needs to be like, you start at childhood and you go through, and you have to like connect all these dots and make it make sense. And it was just like, I don't know that I remember even saying to Jen Liddy on our weekly talk that week, I was like, oh my God, this book just like blowing my mind because it was just such a relief to see that you could create something beautiful and that was meaningful without needing to follow this like very prescribed way of doing it.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I love about memoir is so much is that it is so flexible in the
Hmm.
formatting. And even we talk about too a lot is that it's not always even housed in memoir or autobiography. Sometimes you're gonna find your book housed in like Girl Interrupted is in psychology, Brain on Fire is in medical. There's some that are in A Night is in religion, and then there's some in New Age, and there's some in history, and it's such a flexible genre.
Hmm.
Um, you can write it as a poem, you can write it with journals, you can write it with letters, you can write it with a
Yeah.
whole multitude of any kind of medium that you can think of writing in. And that's okay because it's
Yeah.
your memoir. You can write it through affirmations.
Yeah.
You can
Yeah.
write it as a self-help book and through lessons. There's a million different ways to write that story and your story, and it's going to come out the way it needs to come out, like you said.
Yeah. I love
And
that.
somebody needs to hear it.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. And that's important too, I think, especially with memoir, you think this is so selfish. This is so self-centered. Like I'm just talking about myself, but like the reason you're doing it is because there's somebody out there who needs to connect with that, needs to hear your story because it's going to help them on their journey, and so that's really important to keep in mind.
Yeah, so, so important. You're writing for that one person, and even if it's one person, that
Yeah,
one person needed it.
exactly.
Yeah. Well, oh my gosh, you've given us so much great wisdom and advice and thoughts, and it's been such a pleasure. Is there anything you'd like to add to tell us or talk to us about?
Mm, not really anything that I haven't said already, except I mean, I'm not like, the writing guru. Like I don't know anything more than you guys know, but I think the key for me into just like birthing this thing into the world was always coming back to myself. Like letting go of all of the have to, should, you need to stuff and just going like what feels right for me today and letting whatever creative thing needs to come out of you come out and let that be like that's the story today, and that's okay.
I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
Oh, wonderful. So I always ask, what is on your shelf right now? What's the next memoir? What's the next book you're gonna read?
I'm reading a book called Wintering right now. Um, It's for, I'm actually in two book clubs right now. So both of the books that I'm reading are for book clubs, but it's about like just allowing that like aspect of your soul that needs rest and like kind of hibernation in the darker months or like in darker times in your life, just like letting that be okay and like having that be like a normal thing. So that's, I'm not very far into that one yet, but I think it's going to be very good.
Wow, that
And
sounds amazing. Who's that by?
I wish I could remember to tell you right now.
That's okay. We could look it
Oh,
up.
yeah, look it up. I think I think it's a K word name, Catherine, maybe. I'm sorry. I'm terrible with
Oh no,
names.
no, that's okay. I am too. Oh, Wintering, Catherine May.
Yes, there you go.
Okay. The power of rest and retreat in difficult times. Yeah, so apt,
Oh
right?
yeah.
As we look
A
out our
hundred.
window.
Everyone should read that book right now.
Yes. Oh, I
Yeah.
love that. And I'm sorry, interrupt. Oh, what was the other book that you're reading?
Oh, The Gray Wolf by Louise Penny. It's fiction, but it's for my family book club, which meets this weekend, and I'm only halfway through, so I know what I need to spend the rest of my day reading that book.
Well, first of all, there's no but that's only fiction. Fiction is amazing and awesome and can sometimes guide us just as much as any self-help book through
Absolutely.
life. So I love that. I'm actually reading a trilogy by Nora Roberts right now that's bringing me, it was year one and it's just bringing me right back to the pandemic and so many things, and it's just
Yeah.
stirring up a lot of emotions and thoughts and things that I definitely want have been good to really think about and address.
Huh.
But yeah, fiction is, and I love you have a family book club.
Yeah, we do. Everybody's always like so shocked by that, but we've been doing it for a long time and it's really fun. Like once a month we meet at my sister's house and we just have like someone brings food and we hang out and talk about a book.
That
Yeah.
sounds amazing.
Yeah. It's fun.
What a fabulous idea.
Yeah.
Oh, well, thank you so much, Hetty, for all your wisdom and everything. And I will make sure if you guys are interested, don't forget her book is on sale on Amazon. Every day your life gets better. I will definitely keep a link in the description and definitely check it out just to lighten your soul and to reprogram your mind in all those best ways, right?
Yes. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. And thank you all. And see y'all next week. And you guys have a great one. Have a great weekend. Stay warm out there and be kind.